everyone, PushingUpRoses here, and it's the moment you've all been waiting for. The Crimson Diamond has finally been released, a murder mystery adventure game developed by Julia Minamata, and I am here to give you all of my thoughts. You may remember I did a short review on the demo when that came out in 2019. It's about 5 minutes long, so you can watch it if you truly want to, but I'll be covering everything about this game in this video, so it's not necessary unless you want to give me some more views. And don't forget to smash that like button! I re-listened to my review of the demo and found myself changing some of my thoughts and opinions, so that's always fun. The first thing I'd like to say is that everyone is calling this game a love letter to the old point-and-clickies, as we call them. Even I did it. The Crimson Diamond is a text parser command game in the style of an EGA Sierra game, but I don't want to call it a love letter because that just makes it sound like a fan fiction, and don't come after me. I'm not against fan fiction, and you would know that if you ever read any of my King's Quest fanfic. But I think this game is a lot more unique than that. While it is inspired by the old EGA Sierra games, primarily the Colonel's Bequest and King's Quest IV, it stands on its own for a lot of reasons, and I was very impressed with how different the Crimson Diamond ended up being from its inspirations. First, let's talk about aesthetics, because that's the thing those considering buying this game are going to notice first. True to the EGA games that came before it, the Crimson Diamond uses a limited color palette, meaning everybody looks like they've got a bit of a sunburn. The story takes place in Canada, mainly in a mansion in the small town of Crimson. The layout is very similar to the Colonel's Bequest and the board game Clue. You have different rooms on different floors, and there is an outdoor section. I love seeing all the detail added in this final version after playing the demo. It's wonderful to see all the design elements come together, and it really is stunning. Just looking at it, I get this really cozy, nostalgic feeling, except it's not as wistful or as sad as feeling nostalgic. It's happier than that. It felt like I was truly tapping into my childhood and in tune with everything I love about adventure games, and as I started playing it, it felt like this warm friggin' hug. Even the main character's name, Nancy Maple, oozes with coziness, as it seems to be inspired by Nancy Drew and Agatha Christie's Miss Marple, and if you didn't know, Christie was the queen of cozies. I initially played the Colonel's Bequest with my best friend at the time, Kim. She came over one night and we sat ourselves in front of that game and played for hours. Unfortunately, we were too frightened to do much, but we did finish it and get the bad ending. Booting up the Crimson Diamond reminded me of those times with Kim in my old bedroom at my old desk, with the lava lamp on top of it, with my parents in the other room watching TV together. They have both since passed, so playing this game truly brought me back to a better time. I know a lot of people say that about things, especially using the phrase, "it brought me back to a better time," but I can earnestly say this really did that for me. It just gave me a feeling of that happiness and comfort, and that alone makes this game a success to me personally. But what about you, the curious adventurer? Or maybe you don't play adventure games at all, but you want to know if this is a good place to dip your toes. The art style is great, but what about the gameplay itself? Well, the first thing you should know is that this title uses a text parser, which is not common at all, even in modern adventure games. It does make some use of the mouse, and you can use it to walk around, but because I was typing so much anyway, I mostly used the arrow keys. Historically, text parser games have not been the most enjoyable, which is why they have slowly phased out. Back in the day, you would need to get the wordage just right, or the game wouldn't understand what the heck you were trying to say. I like text parser games because it gives me this weird sense of control. Yes, that's right. Do what I tell you to do, Nancy Maple! Dance, monkey, dance! I think developers have learned a lot since the old days of text parsers, and it shows in this game. It's easy to use, it's not too nitpicky, even though I did, of course, notice that the word use has been yeeted from the game's vernacular. Some people didn't like that, but I'm going to have to call you out, Bernard. I think that not allowing the player use the word use was smart and strategic, because instead of just using everything with everything, the lack of the word made me think very specifically of what I needed to do and with what items, which in turn made me feel like a genius. Playing a text parser game is really like doing science or following a complex recipe. You can't just add shit all willy-nilly, you have to know what you're doing. Let's talk story. You play aforementioned Nancy Maple, a budding mineralogist. Your boss sends you to the small town of Crimson because a fisherman found a diamond in the belly of a fish, and he wants to know where the diamond came from. Could the town have more diamonds? It'd be a revolutionary discovery for you and your boss. You hop on a train from Toronto to Crimson. During your journey, you meet a shy but kind woman named Kimmy, who is also traveling to Crimson to go on a bird watch, so you become travel partners. Unfortunately, you nod off, and when you wake up, your luggage is gone. It contained your field kit, so that's a conundrum. At the train station, you meet another mineralogist named Albert, who looks a bit like Detective Poirot, and another person from the Crimson Inn named Jack, who is there to pick up Albert. He informs everyone that the inn is no longer used as such and that it is closed. Only Albert may travel back with him because he was allegedly sent by the government to do field work. However, since it's late at night, Jack takes you and Kimmy back to stay the night, vowing to take you back to the train station the next morning. The thing is, that's not gonna happen. Yep, the bridge explodes, so the train is out until further notice. Looks like you get to stay and do some field work after all, and do some snooping, because what else is a girl gonna do? There seems to be drama going in at the inn. The owner, Evan Richards, wants to live a nice, quiet life at his lodge and isn't too happy about the field worker. His sister Nessa is there, visiting with her lawyer friend, Corvus, and they seem to be plotting. As you can see, here I am, eavesdropping on their plotting. Just like in the other Laura Bow games, listening to people's conversations is a huge part of this game and one of the ways you get information. Evan's wife Margot, who I called promiscuous in my original review, but I am retracting that now since I've played more, seems to be falling ill with some sort of mysterious ailment. And Albert? Well, this guy is just weird. Super grumpy. There are multiple secrets and mysteries to unravel here, but I do want to tell you this. This is not a classic and then there were none scenario. Knowing what I know about whodunits and games like The Colonel's Bequest, I kept expecting bodies to show up everywhere, but that doesn't happen. The story goes in a different direction, and I actually appreciate that the dev resisted temptation to copy the murders from the Laura Bow games. And while eavesdropping and examining inventory items are similar to those games, the mechanic of taking fingerprints and studying items is much different and involves more steps. I really liked it. I liked dusting things and comparing fingerprints and footprints. It made me feel like an amateur detective. Definitely not like a real detective, like Poirot, but you know, like a Jessica Fletcher type, a nosy writer who finds like buttons on the floor and is like, aha, I know this button. Another thing I appreciate is that you can die, getting death sequences similar to the ones of Sierra titles past, but you get ample warning before doing something stupid, which is nice. So while you can't screw up too astronomically, you can make errors or miss things. And it's up to you if you want to try these things again or go at things a different way, or if you want to keep plugging along. There isn't necessarily a time restraint, but doing a set amount of things will move the story along. There appears to be unlimited save slots, allowing the player to go back and try different ways of solving the puzzles, which I highly recommend you do. I love that there are so many different ways of doing things and ways to miss evidence. It gives the game replayability, and it also means that you get different endings to this game based on your choices. But it is certainly not as mean as something like The Colonel's Bequest, where you can miss nearly everything and get a horrible ending. It's obvious the dev didn't want this game to be egregiously difficult or discouraging. Now, it's hard for me to give this game a difficulty level. I found it neither overbearing nor too simple. Overall, I had just enough challenge to feel like the smartest person in the room after completing puzzles that took me a bit longer. It also tells me when I did a good job, bolstering my ego even more. But I've been playing these exact type of adventure games since I was 5, so some of the puzzles came easier to me, whereas maybe somebody new to the genre would find them more difficult. I would also say that the puzzles are logical and make sense. There's no cheese in the machine puzzles, a la King's Quest V. And no, I will never stop talking about the cheese puzzle, and you can't make me. It is now my go-to reference for bad puzzle design. Making the game much easier to parse is the inclusion of a notebook, one you can actually use. In fact, it's probably the most useful notebook I've had in an adventure game, giving you clear objectives and keeping track of your progress. Another big part of the gameplay is talking to people, asking them about objects you find, and about other people as well. It's not nearly as overwhelming as other mystery games, with the dialogue a little more terse and to the point. I think it's safe to say that I like the mechanics of this game, and I felt extremely engaged while playing it. Every time I did something right, the game encouraged me, and I wanted to keep going to figure out where the story was taking me. I do have some criticisms, but before I get into those, here's a short list of things I noticed and liked during my gameplay. If you type pause, it will pause the game. I feel like this is something I always wanted as a kid when I played text parser games. I always thought it should work, and now it does. I'm very pleased with that. The music is absolutely solid and mimics the sounds of retro DOS games because the composer bought a Roland MT32 synthesizer module to create it, which was used in the late 80s for sound design on many PC games. Though the dev did not ask him to do this, he wanted to anyway because, quote, he's a giant nerd. Fun fact, King's Quest IV, which was released in 1988, was the first Sierra game to have a complete soundtrack made with the Roland MT32. Here's what it sounds like. And here's what the Crimson Diamond sounds like. You can open up nearly every drawer, cabinet, and cupboard in this game, and even though there's rarely anything useful in them, I loved doing this. I don't know why, I just like snooping that much. There we go, everything is opened. Definitely not going to close anything though. That's someone else's problem. If you do happen to miss something, the game tells you by way of Nancy's inner monologue. You will either think this makes the game too simple, or love it for not being as cruel as the Colonel's Bequest, where you can miss things without ever realizing. Similar to other murder mystery games, there is an inquest at the end. Don't be intimidated though, it is very fair, and even if you missed some evidence, it's not going to punish you too hard. Though it's definitely worth it to be thorough and try to get the answers right. Okay, let's talk about a couple criticisms I have with the game. While I am not trying to compare this game too heavily to other titles, I do have to do it to some extent because there are always things that another game might have done better or worse, so I like to have something to reference. In this case, I am referencing something I enjoyed from the Colonel's Bequest, which are these really complex, nuanced characters that had all of these secrets and scandals. Even though the dialogue can come across as too long-winded for some, I really enjoyed getting to know these characters more deeply. The Crimson Diamond is definitely pared down. I feel like I didn't truly get to know any of these characters, nor did I feel like Nancy really connected with anyone within the story. She didn't make any great friends, nor did she make any great enemies. I couldn't get a good read on any of their personalities, which is something I really look for in a mystery story, no matter what medium it's in. Especially if it's a cozy style mystery, where there's often more emphasis on characters than on the actual crime. While this is a criticism, it's also a positive in my perspective. It means I care about the game and the story, and I like it enough to want more from it. I want to know more about Margot's past. I want to know more about Kimmy's background. I want to cuddle this cute cat. I like some of the twists and turns in the story. I think I just wanted them to be more detailed. And again, this is a personal preference. You may have hated how long and detailed the text boxes were in the Colonel's Bequest, and that would be fair. You may enjoy this scaled back version quite a bit more. Besides, it does get overwhelming to interrogate everybody in the Laura Bow games. There are so many characters, and they're all dickheads and somewhat unpleasant to talk to. That all being said, I really do like this game and had a wonderful time playing it. I'm impressed that yes, it was definitely inspired by the games I mentioned earlier, but it has some very distinct differences and its own personality, which is why I recommend picking it up. If you like retro-looking titles, murder mystery, and inventory-based adventure games, you are going to like this one. Even more so if you like trying to get different endings and going back to rediscover new things. If you've played this game, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you haven't seen them, I've actually reviewed many old Sierra games right here on this channel, so if this video intrigued you, maybe check those out as well. Thank you for watching, and until next time, happy sleuthing! Hey everyone, thanks for watching my review on the Crimson Diamond. I hope you found it insightful. If you want to see more things from me, I have a few suggestions, but first I want to give a shout out to my patrons, because without them, I wouldn't be able to keep buying adventure games. It's true. If you're interested in supporting me or the channel, there are links in the description, and if not, likes and shares certainly do their part. If you want to see more from me, I have a few recommendations on the screen. On the left is my last video, a review of a wild X-Files episode where the Brady Bunch and their house are real and possibly killing people. And on the right is my review of the Colonel's Bequest. Be kind, it's old. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.